Welcome back, everyone. I hope you're doing well. Well, today we'll be reacting to another SideQuest video. That time, England almost converted to Islam. Now, we saw a video previously around what happened, like what was the timeline of kings losing their power to the commoners, and this kind of came up in terms of like the Magna Carta era, I believe. This would be interesting, right? Something very interesting. Didn't really think about this before. So let's jump right in. If you're new here, this is what we do. We learn. So let's jump.
England, the glorious forebear of Western civilization.
They put Spain.
Yes, and creator of the chip, the English contribution to world cuisine. There's a little-known story about our dear motherland that you won't find in the school curriculum. And that's the one time England almost converted to Islam.
And just notice what he said right there at the beginning. What's not in the school's curriculum. Because like only so much is in the curriculum, which is voted on. And I'm speaking in a Western tongue here. But it is voted on, usually, your curriculum in school to what you shall learn or what the students shall learn. But, of course, that's combated with, like, amount of time, resources, etc. That's why if you believe that you got a formal education, you really did not. You got an interesting, you had a voted on education.
Yes, it's quite the bizarre story. And it starts with our good friend, King John.
King John, sorry for pausing so much, but King John, of course, this is the time, about 1200s.
See, while being King of England usually came with a number of benefits, unfortunately for John in 1199, having money was not one of them. The previous King of England, John's brother, Richard, aka Richard the Lionheart, aka Brave Daddy, don't call him Dick, he doesn't like that, had been rather liberal with his spending. First, he went off to reclaim Jerusalem in the Third Crusade, with the end result being a mountain of expenses and a grand total of 0 reclaimed Jerusalems. Although, honourable mentions, he did conquer Sicily and Cyprus on the way there.
Wow.
However, on the way back, Richard was imprisoned by the opportunistic Holy Roman Emperor, Henry VI, who really just couldn't resist earning some free money. That little maneuver cost the English crown 2 years of its revenues, thank you very much. And in the end, it was all for naught. For just a few years later, Richard, that is, died of an infected crossbow wound.
Wow.
And thus, jolly old John was left with a lot of land to defend. Remember, England at the time owned vast swathes of what we now call France, and precious few resources with which to defend it. What followed was arguably the worst series of defeats in English history. In the span of several years, John lost Normandy, Anjou, and Maine. He got excommunicated by the Pope, and his English vassals would eventually sit him down and get him to sign the Magna Carta. Suffice to say, King John was not having a good time. He was in desperate need of new allies. And so he did what any sensible medieval monarch would do. He expanded his Tinder discovery settings. Swipe left, swipe left, swipe left. Oh, bingo! One of the first new matches was Al-Nasir, the Caliph of the Almohads. His Muslim realm stretched across...
Yeah, so there was a time, of course, where Iberia or Spain basically was Muslim. In Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, all these countries right here were also Islam. So it's not that far, right? We think of Islam as like the Middle East, but this is Europe. This is Europe.
Across North Africa and into modern Spain. Yet it was threatened to the north by France and the rising Iberian kingdoms.
Yeah.
Now, while military aid between the two realms would have been logistically difficult, it was theoretically possible. And for John, that was good enough. In 1212, he sent a royal delegation to the Muslim ruler. The man in charge was a curious fellow, Robert of London, a Jewish convert with a love for gold and intrigue. Supposedly, Robert conveyed to Al-Nasir the following offer: King John was ready to swear fealty and to abandon Christianity in favor of Islam.
Okay.
As long as the Muslims were willing to help him reclaim his lost territories in France.
That's a very interesting quid pro quo right there. Like an entire, like that is desperate, very desperate right there, to abandon an entire sovereign country's faith for more territory. That is interesting.
It's questionable how receptive the English population would have been to such a radical
definitely
change.
not have been receptive.
But ultimately, things never got that far. For in private, Robert told al-Nasir that King John was a cruel tyrant who knew only failure. The Caliph rewarded Robert for his honesty and sent the rest of the envoy off empty-handed. When Robert returned to his king, he showed the gifts as proof that he'd had a very productive conversation with the Muslim ruler, for which John rewarded him with even more gifts and a position as abbot of St. Albans.
Wow.
The fact that we even know of this story is because Robert bragged to the wrong person. He told all of this to a monk at his abbey, who happened to have the hobby of writing everything down. Funnily enough, that monk would later write that Robert was eventually caught and exiled for embezzling church funds. But anyway, this whole ordeal ultimately amounted to nothing, for al-Nasir died a year later at the hands of the Crusaders, with King John himself kicking the bucket not long after. Of course, there are some arguments that Robert had intentionally mistranslated the king's proposal. Perhaps what John was really offering was to merely pay tribute. Some historians even argue that the meeting never took place. Shock.
I mean, you gotta take his word for it, especially gifts.
Correct. Which may very well be the case, though one should never underestimate the power of desperation. Unlike King John, we here at SideQuest intend on being much more successful in our conquest. In fact, I dare say that the conquest of YouTube has been coming along quite nicely.
Is that it? Yeah, it's just its own thing. I don't know if I have an opinion on this really, because is it something that actually happened? I keep thinking about that. I mean, you gotta take his word for it, right? You gotta take his word for it. Very interesting. I think this is just like I mean, we started this video off thinking like, why did this not happen? But at the end of the day, it probably didn't happen. Probably didn't happen. Let me know your thoughts. If you think it happened, let me know below. If you have a good video recommendation, please also leave that below. I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.